The ninth season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Sunday at 5 p.m.
Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea McMaster. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Consider This. If you're 40 or older, chances are you know the meaning of the term sandwich generation, used to describe the growing number of adults who are taking care of their aging parents and also squeezed between the demands of their children, spouses, and careers. Here's a couple of stats for you. Nearly 1 in 4 households now are providing care to a relative or a parent aged 50 or older. Other surveys suggest that today's baby boomers, that's adults born between 1946 and 1965, likely will spend more years caring for a parent than for their children. Well, most of us avoid thinking about that day when our parents won't be self-sufficient, but as a result, they're unprepared when that day does happen. It's good to start thinking about that ahead of time, and that really is the purpose of today's Consider This. We're joined by Mary Lou Brzee, who is with the VP of Marketing and Development for the Visiting Nurse Association. We're so glad that we could have you with us today. And you're going to be talking a little bit in general more about taking your parents into your home and about the home health care option. And also we're joined by Cindy Kadavi with the state's long-term care ombudsman program. And you can tell us a little bit about how you can be an advocate if there is a concern in a nursing home and talking about that nursing home option. So we're going to cover a lot in today's Consider This, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about having that conversation with your parent, talking about the what ifs ahead of time before that crisis develops or before the health issue develops where they have to be put into a facility or they are looking at a home health care option. So how would you begin that conversation with a parent?
It's similar to a conversation that you would have with your spouse about children and your estate planning and what you're going to do if something would happen to the two of you and your child. It's talking with your parents and asking the questions, what are their wishes when it comes to their health care? Do they prefer to stay in their home? Would they prefer to be in a facility setting? Do they have a specific facility in their community that they would prefer? It's just talking to them about what they want. And it's also asking the very difficult questions of, if you were unable to make your own choices for yourself in your medical state, what are your wishes? Would you want to be on a resuscitator? Would you want to be removed from that? But having your family know those options up front and knowing what your wishes are really can alleviate a lot of stress and pressure and family dynamics when the situation may possibly arise.
Good conversation to have. Cindy, did you want to add anything?
Well, and I would agree with that. I think most people want to have as much choice and control over their lives as possible. So I agree. When you put it in terms of choices, and if we are, as a family, talk about your choices now, understand what your wishes are, it will give you more control in the event that there is some type of crisis. We've also said or heard that families, it's easier sometimes to begin that conversation if there's a current event or a friend of the family is going through some type of situation like that. It's a little bit removed, and sometimes though it can help to bring that up and then generalize from that to what would you want if this happened to you. Sometimes that can be a way to start it.
Sure, a good way to bring maybe a difficult conversation then to the table. Well, I have also heard, and I want to point this out, don't make promises. Well, Mom, will never put you in a nursing home, because things can change. Health status could change. That might not always be the case. So be careful when you're having that conversation not to make those promises.
Yeah, and we do, we work with people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, and it's hard when you see families who have had to make that choice and they've made those promises in the past and they're really racked by guilt about having to make that choice. So I agree, it's better not to make that promise.
Well, Mary Lou, you have a personal story to share as well as representing the Visiting Nurse Association, a home health care facility. But I want you, or a home health care program, I want you to talk a little bit about what it was like for you in making that decision to have your parents come into your home to care for them.
For myself personally, it was really never a choice. And part of that is I have an understanding of the home care process and what was going on. But once my father was in the hospital, and the options were being discussed, the options were that they could go to their own home, which would be very hard to maneuver with stairs, not being able to work with the stairs. They could go to a skilled nursing facility to receive the care until they could go into their own home, or they could come and stay with us for a period of time until they were able to go into their own home. And we opted for that choice of coming into my home. What that does for a family and things that they have to consider when you're making those choices are family living arrangements. For us, it was putting a hospital bed in our dining room, so rearranging the room. It's looking at the safety of your home, pulling up rugs, for example, if they're using a cane or a walker, so the rug doesn't slide or they don't fall. Moving chairs around. So we had to kind of play musical chairs to find the chair that was most comfortable for my father, that also had armrests that he could use kind of as leverage to push from with what he was dealing with. And so it's really looking at the dynamics of your family, if there's children involved, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if your spouse and yourself work. But for us, there was really no other option, and it was a delight to have my family there and to actually reconnect with your parents. I mean, you leave home and you don't spend that kind of time with them again, and it was very enjoyable to be able to reconnect as a family.
And one thing just to point out, that in our conversations, make sure that there's a balance in the caring, that you don't want to overestimate some of the needs of your dad in this instance.
Exactly.
And taking care of him, knowing that he still had some independence, that he could do some things on his own.
Well, and I think that's a very important thing just in healthcare in general. You have a choice with your healthcare. It's not directed, I mean, a physician is going to direct home care, but you have a choice in what you're going to be doing and receiving, and you are part of that plan with your physician and a home care agency as to what you want and what your goals are. And it is a balance. Sometimes people have to kind of come to those decisions on their own instead of children saying, you need to do this now because this is what you're supposed to do. A lot of times they just come to those decisions on their own as they know their own physical limitations.
And giving your parents really a chance to make some of those decisions will help them be less angry, maybe depressed, or and feel so dependent on you. They want to have that sense of independence always.
That was actually probably the hardest part, was for them feeling like they were imposing on us. And for us, it really was not an imposition. It is a balance, though. It really is a balance between a career, if you're working, your family, and being in the caregiver role.
Okay. Well, I want to move on to, we're going to get back to more of some of the home health care options and talking a little bit about how that works. But I want to move on to introducing again Cindy and explaining that if nursing home, it really is the best option for you. If you have concerns as a child of a parent in a nursing home, the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program really is a great program to an advocate really to step in a place. So I'm going to have you explain a little bit, Cindy, about why this program was first initiated.
The program was created by federal law, so every state has to have a long-term care ombudsman program, and each state looks a little bit different. Nebraska's is composed of staff and volunteers, but the role is always the same, and the role is to be an advocate for individuals who are living in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, to help make sure that their rights are protected, that they receive the care that they need, and that their preferences are honored, their concerns are heard and addressed.
Okay. Talk a little bit about now how the Ombudsman program works. The Ombudsman will be, or volunteers most likely, that will be going into nursing home facilities and really getting to know the residents and family members so that if a problem does occur, they know where to go. Is that right?
We do have, right now we have 5 volunteer programs across the state, so they're only in certain areas. There is a volunteer ombudsman program in Omaha, Lincoln, Norfolk area, the Kearney area, and then the Scottsbluff area. As the state long-term care ombudsman, I coordinate the statewide program to ensure that every resident has access to the program. We have 2 regional staff. One is in Scottsbluff, one is in Lincoln, and then I also have 4 local staff who operate out of area agencies on aging. So any resident in a long-term care facility that has a concern, feels like it's not getting resolved, or someone has a concern on behalf of a resident, they can contact our program and ask us to intervene. It's really designed, the program is designed with the idea that people in long-term care are especially vulnerable. They're dependent on their caregivers for that care, and they may not always have a very involved family or friends that are able to visit and help out if there's a problem.
And even if they have an involved family member, sometimes that family member, just out of fear, doesn't want to stop in and make a complaint at a nursing home, a fear that there might be a retaliation of sort. So then again, that ombudsman can be that voice for the resident. Tell us a little bit about how that would work. Give us some examples of some issues that might come up so viewers get an idea of how this would work.
Well, and that is, I mean, that's very true, Andrea. We don't have a lot of examples of actual retaliation, but that fear is very prevalent, because if you're dependent on someone else for all of your care, for all of your needs, that fear is going to be there regardless. So there is a concern. If the ombudsman is involved, then we can intervene where maybe it may be more difficult for family or for the resident themselves to bring up the issue. Some examples of problems that we can be involved with are issues around care. An example would be if call lights are not being responded to in a timely manner. Some type of therapy has been ordered, but it's not being received, or there's some type of issue with medication. It may be an issue with preferences. Somebody prefers to take their bath in the morning, or they'd like to sleep in later in the morning or go to bed later in the evening, and that's not being listened to or addressed. It could be issues with quality of life, issues that, all kinds of issues. For us, it's been, that's really kind of our main area that we focus on, is quality of life issues from the standpoint of, nursing homes are to provide quality care, but a lot of times those quality of life issues, like Mary Lou talked about, having control, having independence, can be just as important. So it may involve conflicts that we can try to resolve. Our program is not an enforcement agency, so we don't have the authority to impose sanctions or to cite problems. What we do is we use education and persuasion, negotiation, to get everyone involved to address whatever the concerns are.
Okay, and really this is a program that anybody can use, any parent can use, or any child of a parent could use, but the resident themselves could call on that ombudsman as well.
Certainly, and that's really the strong point of the volunteer program, because our volunteers are assigned to a specific facility. They visit every week. As she said, they get to know the residents, the people that live there. If there is a concern, then they're aware of it, and if the resident wishes, then they can be involved to try to resolve it. And anything from, I told them I don't want green beans and they keep giving it to me, to I wasn't able to get help in the middle of the night. I mean, there's all types of problems. Anything that concerns a resident is something that we can be involved in. Other than abuse. By state law, we cannot be involved if there's a complaint or an allegation of abuse, because there's another agency that deals with that.
Well, I've had a chance to kind of watch this program firsthand at a Omaha nursing home, and it was really neat to see this volunteer ombudsman coming in. He knew all the residents by name. They knew him. They had a huge smile on their face when he came to visit, and was just looking forward to that conversation every week. Knew the day that he was going to come visit, and was watching the clock, waiting for him to come. Not always did they have concerns, maybe, but they really had developed a friendship. And so I know just for that reason that nursing homes really are welcoming this program. You might think that it's kind of the opposite. Oh, they're the people dealing with complaints. But I found that that's not the case. It was, especially with this nursing home, they were welcoming the long-term care ombudsman program.
Well, and from the facility standpoint, it gives them an opportunity to hear concerns that they might not hear, and an opportunity to resolve it cooperatively. So
Sure. Okay, great. Well, I want to get back now, Mary Lou, we're not forgetting about you, to talk a little bit about the home health care option. Why would that be a good option for someone?
Home care is really an extension of services that you might receive in a hospital. So you're going home and you have a skilled need. It's just not a need that's, in the hospital they keep you for so long, and then you go home and you either can go home on your own and you have yourself or a caregiver that can address your needs, or you go to a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home facility to receive those services. Home care is physician directed, and it allows that person to go home, to be in the environment where they want to be, where they're going to be more comfortable and they're going to feel more safe. People really want to be in their environment. They like their homes. Home care can be skilled nursing, physical therapy, occupational or speech therapies. VNA also has disease-specific programs that address specific diagnoses such as diabetes, cardiopulmonary issues, nutritional services, wound issues. We have a home infusion program. So really any need that someone was receiving in the hospital, they can continue to receive at home. And we work directly with the physician, the patient, and the patient's family to create that plan of care, to personalize it to that individual and what their needs are, and also involve that patient to say, what are your goals and what do you want to achieve at the end of this? I think one thing that's very important for people to understand about home care is that it is on an intermittent basis. So Visiting Nurse Association is a 24/7 agency. We are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're there night and day for emergencies, holidays, you name it. But it is on an intermittent basis. So the visits are scheduled at points in time during a week for to see those individuals.
Would that be every day for some individuals or once a week?
It really varies on a need. You might have a wound patient who has a dressing that needs to be changed once or twice a day. It may be someone who has physical therapy needs and the physical therapist is in the home twice or 3 times a week. But it's also involving the family in the process. And it's not just providing the service, but it's also training and teaching the patient and the caregiver how to do these things themselves. For example, with my father, he was receiving some home infusion therapy. And so it was educating my mother on how to notice the PICC line and to look for any signs and symptoms that there might be an infection, how to change the bandage, how to administer the drug. And they work with those individuals until they are comfortable and feel secure in providing that care on their own. And of course, the nurse is still always available and still makes regular visits.
Okay, so I want to get into a little bit of specifics about how you might choose a home care agency. What would you look for?
One of the things that you would look for is it Medicare certified? So do they provide, can someone with Medicare go to this agency? VNA is Medicare, Medicaid. We take private insurance as well as private pay insurance. So there's a lot of options. You would also want to make sure that they provide the services that you need. Do they have physical therapy or do they have home infusion? Can you get all of your needs met within that one agency? Do they have home health aid services that provide daily living activities that can help with bathing or maybe light housekeeping? Do they have a medical social worker? Do they have individuals that can help identify other resources that you might need, physical therapy or the rehabilitation therapy? So it's really identifying what your needs are. One aspect, or there are lots of options for people when they're looking for home care. They can talk to their friends and family, other people who have used home care services. Talk to your physician, talk to the discharge planner or the social worker in the hospital. And you can also go to Medicare.gov.
We do have that website that we can put up at the bottom of the screen.
And there's a program called Home Health Compare, and you can go in and you can pull up home health care agencies and compare them, either across the board on 10 quality assessments, or you can pull it if, say, you're a rehab patient. You might want to look at the agencies that have physical therapy, and then you want to look at the quality indicators on the percentage of being able to transfer in and out of bed, or the ability to ambulate or move around, or to get around without pain. Those are 3 very important things when you're a rehab patient or receiving physical therapy, and you want to know how other agencies compare. And this gives you an opportunity. But I also say, most importantly, call the agencies, ask questions, but always ask questions. It's your health care.
Okay, so www.medicare.gov is the website that you mentioned. So www.medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE for more information that you can receive. And I want to mention too that Visiting Nurse Association, he is here in Omaha, but in outstate Nebraska, in western Nebraska, central Nebraska, they might not have necessarily a Visiting Nurse Association, but there are other home care.
There are other home care agencies, and if Medicare.gov is great for individuals who live out of state, but their family lives, they live here and their family lives someplace else, or their parents live someplace else. You can go in and you can look by state as well. So you can look at agencies wherever your parents reside.
Okay. Cindy, moving back over to you and looking at the nursing home option, which is an option that a lot of families choose, or assisted living facility. What are some of your suggestions or recommendations when folks are beginning to look at these facilities, what they should look for?
Well, and I want to echo what Mary Lou said. Medicare.gov also has another website called Nursing Home Compare, and it offers the same information about nursing homes. You can compare nursing homes on quality measures in the same way, a little bit different quality measures, but you can also look at past inspection and complaint investigation data on any nursing home in the country. So that is a resource that a lot of individuals do use. We emphasize that, however, that's just one tool. That again, the same that Mary Lou said, we recommend visiting any facility that may be a potential location for your family member. And we strongly recommend at least 2 visits. One during the day when typically management staff are there and you can ask questions, get a lot of information, and then another visit either in the evening or on the weekend when typically the management staff are not scheduled and you sometimes find a different environment. So it's good to get a feel for how that facility operates at different times of the day or night or on the weekend. We do have a checklist, and that's available from our office that individuals use if they're looking at selecting a nursing home or an assisted living facility. We suggest looking at things, making a lot of observations as you walk through the facility. Notice the environment. Does it appear to be clean? Does it appear to be a pleasant environment? Notice the individuals that are living there. Do they appear to be clean and well groomed, appropriately dressed? Are they engaged in some type of activity? How do the staff interact with the residents? Are they interacting in a professional, courteous way? Do they appear to be responsive to call lights? Are they responsive to the residents? Those kind of things that you can observe carefully as you walk through the facility and get a feel for it. There's some things I think that any individual is going to be interested in. Some it's more matching a preference. Some people may prefer an older facility, some may prefer a newer, more modern facility. But really, if you're going to be there a long time, you're selecting a home, even if it's for a short period of time, and you're selecting your caregivers. And when we talk with residents, we hear out of those 2 factors. If it's a choice between a facility where all the colors match and everything looks really nice, and a choice and an alternative of staff that you feel really comfortable with, they choose the staff. That's the more important factor. These are the people that you're going to be seeing every day, interacting with, people that are going to be responding to your needs, so you want to feel comfortable, feel like they are there to help you.
And again, as a child of a parent, you really want your parents to be involved in that process as much as possible, if they can be.
Yeah, and that's why home care is a great option too. I mean, sometimes people need to be in a nursing facility, but that may be for a short period of time, and then maybe they can return home again. And any options that allow people the maximum amount of independence and control, are things that people want and actually demand, and we're seeing more and more options like that in our society. And I think one thing as a family member that you worry about is the safety of your parents or your grandparents. And I think that life is full of risk, and there's no option that's totally safe. So I think it's really, if people are looking at options, it's really important to look at all of them. A nursing home may seem like the safest option, but some of those other options, while they may have a little bit more risk, they may allow more independence and control. So I think the way Mary Lou puts it in terms of choices is really important.
Well, I'm going to have you just address that real briefly. Why would the home care option be a good option for an individual?
What you really work with in home care is working with that individual and having them become independent into a level of ability that they can function safely and securely in their own home. And so you're working with that individual and their family really you want independence, peace of mind, and safety. And it's working with those individuals to achieve that. For the most part with adults or individuals, they want to be in their home, they just feel more secure.
There's got to be a point, though, that might not be a good option anymore.
Exactly.
And so that's probably what the physician or the nurse is looking for also as well with the Visiting Nurse Association when
Exactly.
they're making their visits. And you could reassess later down the road.
And that is something that's a very good point, to be aware of the situation and what the caregiver can handle. The caregiver might have a change in their family where they have their own illness. Maybe they lose a job. For some reason they can't continue to function at the ability, or the caregiving is requiring more and more time and it's affecting their job where they just can't provide the care at that level. And that might be a time where the nursing home does become the option that is more feasible for the family. So there are times that you're looking at different options, and it also may be that the medical condition elevates to a point where it's considering hospice. And hospice is for individuals who are terminally ill, 6 months or less in their diagnosis, and they're not choosing curative measures. And so that also becomes an option for an individual and the caregivers and the families of when they hit that point, making those decisions as well.
Well, I know, Cindy, that statewide you have some staff members with the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, but there are volunteer programs you can be a volunteer ombudsman. And so tell us a little bit about what a volunteer you're looking for in a volunteer.
And right now we have about 75 volunteers statewide, and in Nebraska today we have 234 nursing homes, about 275 assisted living facilities. So we could use a lot more volunteers.
Okay.
It's really a great job, and our volunteers are wonderful. We look for people who have an interest in working with typically older adults, although we are seeing a lot of younger people in long-term care as well, people who may be there for a long period of time. So people that want to be involved, that enjoy working with people, like resolving problems. That's a lot of what this job is.
Okay, I'm going to make sure that people get the number in case they are interested in that. And that toll-free number, 1-800-942-7830. And we have the website as well that people can check out with Health and Human Services in the state. So we're so glad that both of you could be here today giving us options for our parents. And thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Consider This.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 9th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Sunday at 5 p.m.